our organiser manages the weather better than he has today. So we won't hold it against it. Anyway, thank you all very much for coming. Those of you who are still in the coffee thing, could you empty the pot quickly and grab a seat? And we'll kick off, only 5 minutes late. And I'll hand you over to our esteemed president. Unfortunately, they charge a fortune for a dais here to stand up on. And we decided we'd be sitting down at a lower level this year, so anyone speaking is going to have to stand up. David, over to you. Do you want to score?
No. Thank you. Welcome to our annual general meeting. And it's my privilege to briefly open the meeting and thank all of those who have given their time and effort to and talent to benefit our activities. In particular this weekend to Peter Gilts, who's done a grand job. He had to contend with screaming brides the other day.
Only one screaming bride.
Yeah. I like a good story. Last year I devoted most of my presentation to our outgoing chairman, John, and recognise his excellent decade of service with his steady hand on the tiller, guiding our ship through the turbulent decade. And he's still here. Happily, though we have our chairman-elect, Martin, who is in place, and he will be taking over the reins in the new year.
Provided that you vote for him.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Subject to your approval, yeah. Martin is a hands-on enthusiast with huge competition and managerial experience. Only 2 days ago we were chatting on hands-free television as he was lowering the crankshaft from his Lagonda. I'm sure he'll fit the bill excellently for us. There are many members who I could mention who've served in various capacities this year, but I would like to give a special mention to Roger Seabrook. He has been our magazine editor for 10 years, and over this time he has done, I think you will all agree, a superb job. Our magazine is the vital link that binds all the membership together across the world, really, all our geographical membership, and he shortly hands over to his successor, and I hope you will show your appreciation for Roger's excellent period as our editor. Thank you. There are many members who I could mention who have served in various capacities. The Lagonda Club is unlike many of our sister clubs, which are now populated predominantly by modern cars, together with a huge membership, prestigious headquarters, and a large paid staff establishment. However, we remain largely a voluntary organisation, and this is epitomised for such activities as our Continental Rally. They have their annual rally organised in a different country each year by a different volunteer, and this year was the 20th rally in the Black Forest, which Alan and I attended as is our tradition. The organiser was Peter Scherg. Some of you will remember him, he ran the forum for us for many years. And we've had several such events in the UK and abroad this year, and all of them enjoy, I believe, that special feeling of Lagonda fellowship and companionship. I am confident that the club is in good shape going forward. Thank you very much.
should say in kicking off, David is actually younger than me. As he said, this is my 11th AGM, and definitely the final one. You'll be very glad to know you'll have to deal with a very new face, Martin, from now on. I won't commit you to a number of years, Martin. Anyway, but that comes up later on the agenda. Anyway, so welcome. This is our 32nd AGM. It's our third event here at Walton Hall. We all have different views about venues, and people always complain about venues, but it's extremely hard, we're in competition with the wedding trade, to find places who will put up with our cars on their lawns and will provide us with all that we need. So we're here for the third year, and we'll be coming here again next year, almost certainly. We have a number of people from foreign countries here. Should we say, do we count the Welsh in that? We have a Welsh contingent, we have a lot of Scots here, I think 4 of them. We have Werner from LMB in Belgium, who's very, very welcome. Where are you, Werner? There we are, hooray. Okay.
I think it's distorting a lot, John. It's better with just your normal voice, honestly.
Better what?
Just talking normally without the microphone.
Without the microphone.
I think,
Okay,
what do people
can
think?
you hear me if I say? I'm always told I have a very quiet voice, so I have to shout. Anyway, Werner is here, and we have also the Hannams from France. So we have a reasonable representation. And you're all very welcome, and thank you for making the effort to come here. I've got to add my thanks to Peter Gilks, who took over in the middle of the process this year to organise this event, and has done a sterling job, and we're extremely grateful to Peter for standing in. Yeah. And apart from his disorganisation of the weather, I think he's done pretty well. I also, David referred to events and things organised by people, and I must give a thank you to Alan and Sue Harrison. Alan's sitting down here managing the sound system for us, who put on 2 wonderful tours in Yorkshire at considerable personal effort. And those of us who went on them had an absolutely wonderful time. And Alan, thank you very, very much. The other one who I should thank is Len, who's hiding here somewhere, for organising the display out here today in the rain. And he was here at 8 o'clock this morning or so, having driven all the way up from virtually in London in his 1680, and has got the field organised and has done all the work on that, assisted by Rachel, who's here somewhere. Yes, there we are, there's Rachel. Rachel has promised to do it next year.
Right.
I thought I would stand up and get that down in writing in a minute, just in case you had second thoughts. So thank you all very much. I'd like to also thank my fellow board members for all their work during the year. It's been referred to the fact that I've now done 10 years as your chairman, or more than 10 years now. And I should say that at the same time that I joined as chairman, Roger took over the editorship from Ken, and Brian took over the treasurership from me. And I would very much like to thank them, because we've all done 10 years together, for all their terrific work. And Brian is he's called treasurer, but he's a CFO, really, which is a very posh way of saying a finance director. And he's the absolute rock that keeps the whole show going behind the scenes.
If only.
I'd like to thank those other 10-year veterans for all their work in supporting me during this time. So there you are. I have apologies from a number of people. Arnold, sadly, is no longer travelling, and although he's still very much on the board and comes to our meetings, he can't get around as he used to do. Tim Parker is a very busy young lawyer, and he sends his apologies. Rodney Saunders sends his apologies, and I'll be talking about Rodney a bit later. And Chris and Kate Hobbs have sent their apologies as well.
Bill Spence.
And Bill
as well.
Spence.
Bill Spence as well.
Oh, you didn't tell me he sent it. Anyway, the Spences are missed.
Yeah.
But they came to one of the tour, the first tour, I think, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they've been down here. Anyway, so thanks for those absences. Apologies for absence. And I will now hand over to Brian, who's going to spend at least half an hour going through the minutiae of the accounts. And Warren King is sadly not here.
Thank goodness.
So
I spoke to Warren this week, so I've got some questions.
anyway, over to you, Brian.
Thanks, John.
And you've got to stand
I've got
up.
to stand up. I've got to stand up and read this at the same time. I won't have to read it, actually. As always, I'm not going to go through it in great detail, despite what John would like me to do. I hope you've all read the actual accounts and my comments on them. And if you have, you'll know that it was a slightly better year this year, or the year ending March this year, than the year before. If you remember last time I stood up here, we had, I think, £15,000 in the bank, and I asked you all to dig into your pockets and buy some spare parts. Well, thank you, you did. And the bank balance, when I looked at it this morning, was £64,000.
Very good.
So we are in a good position. We've had our ups and downs, we've had good months and bad months, and £64,000 might sound like a lot of money, but it doesn't go far when you're having to buy big, valuable spare parts. And we are seeing, like everybody else, the effect of inflation coming through. We actually managed last year to reduce our costs in running the club, but each time we get an order for spare parts, it's 20 or 30% sometimes, maybe sometimes more than the last time we ordered them. So we do need to have that cash reserve in order to replace the stocks. And we have started to replace the stocks. Again, if you look in the accounts, you'll see that the stocks, it shows a small increase in the total stocks. If you look at the detail in my report, you'll see that the new Spurs have gone up quite a bit, and we've sold some of the second-hand Spurs and some of the XLMV Spurs. That's really all I'm going to say, unless anybody does have a question, and I'll do my best to answer it.
Who dares ask a question? Come on, somebody.
Well, I spoke to Warren the other day, but he couldn't think of a question to ask. He said he looked through and he was happy with it.
That's nice to know. If there aren't any questions, then I propose that the accounts are accepted. And,
Well, we need to formally ask for your approval.
yeah.
So can those in favour of approving the accounts please show? And all those against? Come on, somebody. Must think this is a crappy set of numbers. No, all right,
Okay. I
approved.
shall sit down.
Roger will minute that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Next on the agenda, we have we don't have, because we're a small company and we come under the rules for small companies, we don't have to have our accounts audited formally. But we do have a reporting accountant who is Manny Chaka, who lives down in Sanderstead in Surrey.
Manny is the one who actually produces these, which are the official club accounts, but these are the ones that get registered with the company's house.
Yeah. And Manny has done for us for, Jonathan will remember, 15 years? Something like that, because he was introduced by you, I think. Anyway, he's an absolute soldier and works very closely with Brian in producing stuff. And he's willing to continue, and we need to formally agree to his appointment to carry on being our reporting accountant. So he puts a note in the accounts, which you've all read in great detail, and we're proposing that we sign him up for another year. Can I have a vote of approval first for the reappointment of Manny Chaka? Thank you very much. Anyone objecting? No? Well done, Manny. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How much has his fees gone up?
He hasn't put his fees up this year yet.
Anyway, so that is that. We now come to the re-election of board members. Our board members rotate. In other words, we all serve once appointed and once approved by this meeting every year. We do 3 years. And people who've done those 3 years, if they're willing to serve again, are put forward for reappointment at this meeting. So the membership of the board is entirely controlled by you guys who show up on wet Sundays in September. Now, the two people who are due to retire under the 3-year rule this year are myself and Rodney Saunders. I need to say a bit about Rodney, because Rodney was very sadly taken very ill earlier this year and is in quite a bad way. He's at home, but very much bedridden, and he has asked that we should not, although we put it in the agenda to put him forward for re-election, he has asked if he could stand down. As you know, Rodney has done a huge amount for the club. He's been the main organiser of several tours with Jonathan, and he has been the organiser of the annual meeting here until it got interrupted this year, and Peter kindly stepped into the block, and he's done that for three years or so now, and he's been a huge supporter of the club in all that he has done. And I would like to pass a vote of thanks to Rodney we can pass on. He's asked to have photographs of our event today sent to him, which we will do. And so I'm not putting him forward to stand again, but could we just have a round of appreciation for Rodney? Then I can't propose myself, so one of my colleagues, if they want to, will have to propose me for another term. Now we need a vote on that. Those in favour? Now the against, come on.
Hard luck, John.
Okay, thank you. Can I just interrupt and say that John is going to still keep an eye on the spares scheme for the time being? Yeah.
Yes, I've been doing two jobs. I'm handing over the chairmanship job to Martin, but the running of the spares is, the day-to-day spares business is run by Robin, and he's got a long speech in a few minutes. But I am the supervising director, if I can put it that way. So we have to put up with each other, which we do.
There you go.
Anyway, so thank you for that. We now move on to the most important thing of the day. As you saw in your newsletter, and as David referred to, I have at last, well, we have at last, had a volunteer to succeed me. And Martin Bugler, who needs very little introduction, very kindly put himself forward. He doesn't actually retire from his day job until January, so you've got me as chairman until January. But Martin started to get his feet under the table. However, unusually for a club, or for a company, Martin's appointment, or the appointment of the chairman, needs to be approved by the AGM. Although selected by the board and voted on the board, you have to approve it. So, I dare you to do otherwise. There will be a very cross lady sitting in the front row here somewhere, were you to disapprove it. So, more than my life's worth. Anyway, so could I have your approval for Martin's appointment, please? Thank you very much. And against? God, you are a very docile lot today. Amazing. Anyway, Martin has been a member of the club, I think, for 38 years now. He's been 18 years looking after what we usually call the sort of regalia. He doesn't like being called regalia, but the jumpers and the books and everything, which he and Denise have managed for many years. And of course, he's been an ace competitor with some quite exotic RPM on his LG45, which none of us believe, but some of us do. So he's been very much as part of the Bugler family and as part of the inner core of the club for very many years. I think he'll be a fantastic follower to myself as chairman. I recommend him very, very, very strongly. So Martin, a big welcome.
Thank you.
We now move on to reports from our officers. An officer is someone who does a lot of work but isn't on the board. And we start as ever with Robin, who looks after our spares. And is Leah here?
She is, but she's looking after the spares
She's
in the
in-
tent.
She's saving
A
stuff.
security matter.
She's in the tent, stopping people nicking it. Is it? Anyway, Robin, the spares is absolutely at the heart of the job. I always say to the Lagonda Club, we've got three things as a board, as a club, to try and achieve. The first thing is to keep the cars on the road. The second thing is to help our members to enjoy their cars. And the third thing is to maintain and develop the club's archives of all the cars and the Lagonda history. And those are the three things that are really core to what we do as a club. On top of the list is to keep the cars on the road. And for that, the spares operation is really the key. And Robin is the key to that. So Robin, give us a few words on your ear.
I will give you a few words. We've set up in the tent, we've got lots of spares to see, and we'd like you to spend lots and lots of money. We're very prepared to take it off you. Don't imagine there'll be any sympathy there. Just produce a credit card and we'll wipe it. But it's lovely to be back here this year after missing last year, and I'm sure the weather's going to be fine. Good. Thank you very much.
Anyone got a question?
Oh, there's no questions, surely.
All the spares you bought that didn't work, the spares that cost you much.
Yes. Come and see us after the event.
It's there to answer questions. Robin, you're getting off lightly.
I know, very lightly.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman's vote of thanks. Tim, unfortunately, can't be with us today. We've got our very esteemed previous competition secretary, another Tim, sitting over in the back there. So where are you, Tim? Is there anything we should be talking about competition-wise, do you think?
Well, only that we have a real lack of competitors these days.
Could you stand up, Tim? Sorry.
Yes, I would dearly love to encourage anybody who has a thought about competing to do so. Coming up this next season, we have the Longstone Long Car Race, which was a great success for the Lagondas when it was held, not last year, or the last season, but the season before. And it's ideal for the 2 and 3 litre Lagondas, I'm afraid not the 4.5s. And so if anybody is thinking that they'd like to have a go on the track, this is your chance. We really do need you. In fact, the Lagonda Club is really rather put to shame by the Bentley Drivers Club, who managed to get 75 racing Bentleys at a pre-race at Le Mans. Now, at one time, we were on a par with the Bentley Drivers Club, and we managed to field teams to race against them. Sadly, that's no longer the case. So we really do need anybody who has an inkling to come out and do it. It's not that dangerous, and it's great fun.
I should say that you mentioned Le Mans. The club is organising, or rather Catherine is organising, a trip to Le Mans Classic in 2025, which will be 90 years after Lagonda won Le Mans. And I hope that people who are inclined to even think about going will mark that date in their diaries. So it's 2 years away, and you cannot possibly be booked up now. That would be inconceivable. So book Le Mans Classic for 2025, and there will be a club expedition there, which will be enormous fun. I should say, as you know, you may know that Tim has got the fastest naturally aspirated 2 litre on the planet, which he's been personally nurturing since 1959. I think I'm right in saying. And he drove up here from deepest Wiltshire with his windscreen down today and with just the aero screen in the rain. And that's the competitive spirit. And he's a lot older than me. Anyway, so we are dropping back in competition terms, and anyone who's inclined to have a go, you'll be very, very welcome. The next report here is on the archives. Arnold is not with us. I have very little to say on the archives, except I would mention that one of our worries about the archives, as you may know, Margaret Bentley left all the Bentley archive to us. So we've got Bentley's private stuff, which the Bentley Drivers Club is somewhat jealous of, I think.
About V12s, yeah.
Yeah,
It was the V12.
it's the V12 stuff. Isn't it?
Yeah.
And we have a very, very good archive, which is all virtually stored in Arnold's house. And one of our worries is that if something happened to the club, that our creditors might seize the archives as a way of compensating themselves. So we've set up a separate trust, and that's been going for some years now. And all our archives and both the paper archives and the various objects we've got are in a separate legal trust. So they are bomb-proof. And there's one or two of us are trustees there, and it's just useful that members should understand that that is very, very secure. I've got nothing particular to report. We haven't acquired anything of great significance this year, but the club always stands ready to buy objects that might come up that have a particular historical context for the club. And that's an important part of what we do.
John, can I ask a question? I was talking to the chair designate last night about the digitisation of the magazines and the newsletters. Mm-hmm. And I wondered if, obviously we've got 700 plus members and they're not all here, but we do have 80 odd people here, and what people's views were on the digitisation of the magazines and the newsletters.
Well,
I mean, I wonder, because there would be a cost involved.
there always is.
But whether people would find that useful to be able to access and to search people's magazines.
I think it's worth saying that the club went through an exercise which Richard Ray Smith is organising. It must be 10 years ago now. That's what I know you were involved as well. In looking, it's not so much digitising the magazines, which we started to do. It's providing a search mechanism, so you can go into the entire history of the magazines and look up. If you put 2 litre in, say, they'll produce every 2 litre article. It would just come up on the screen. And the difficulty was providing a search mechanism, which 10 years ago turned out to not to be possible. So that never went anywhere. However, it is very much possible today, and I know that because I'm a member of another club, this is Clock Collecting, for what that's worth, which have this, and they have digitised all their magazines going back to the year dot, and you can search them. So there is a technology out there that will now do that. And it's something that's on my very long list of things to look at. And interesting. What do you think? Would you think that would be a useful facility? Yes. Would it be worth it for £1, for £100, for £1,000?
I think we need to know roughly what it will cost.
Yeah. If there's anybody with the necessary technical knowledge, or ideally perhaps a son or even a grandson or daughter with that sort of knowledge, that would take this on as a project on our behalf and then report back to us, I think that would be a great thing to do.
Ideal for someone in their 20s,
yeah.
I think.
Yes. But I say, when we did look at it 10 years ago, and it was, at that time it wasn't feasible, but it's something I would personally love to see. And, in fact, beyond that, into the rest of the archives.
Anyway, it's very much on our list. Right, next item is membership. Colin.
Sit down too long. Right, last year I reported at this meeting that membership was 800. This year it's 720, which sounds awful. But I think the figures last year were slightly skewed because we were having difficulty dealing with the rolling membership, which has come in the last couple of years. Anyway, Leonie and Valerie have spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks reconciling the website with the database, and we've come up with this figure of 720. This is disappointing, obviously, but with everything that's happened in the last few years, people are using their cars less. Until they need spares, they sometimes drop out, and then suddenly they're rejoining and I want spares. Robin gets this all the time. So I don't think we should get too panicky about it. We still have a fair number of older members who like to pay their subs direct to us. We used to get well over 100 cheques every year and a lot of credit cards. This year we had only 42 cheques, so it's gradually getting better, plus the same number of credit cards. But as a sign of the age of our members, on one morning earlier this year, there were 2 envelopes in the post with the same writing. And I thought, that's odd. You can guess. One had a cheque, the other had a credit card authority. Of the same fairly ancient member. But anyway, there we are. On a personal note, I just mentioned that it's exactly 70 years ago, just about to the day, that I bought my first Lagonda, which was a rapier, which we kept for 5 years and sold only when somebody was on the way. And we bought it back again many years later, and our son Roland now owns it and enjoys it. And it's also 64 years ago that this month that we bought our 2-litre, which is still in the family. Our younger son David drives it. So the whole family have been brought up with Lagondas, and now some of the grandsons are getting involved, which is rather fun. Changing the subject completely. On the evening of the coronation, back in May, about 10 o'clock, the club phone rang. I thought, 10 o'clock at night, who's this? This was somebody from Alaska. Some of you may remember Harry Robinson many years ago, lived in Alaska, died a long time ago, and his widow Marianne phoned just to say that she had a lot of stuff to do with the 2 4.5s that they had, and she was going to send it. That's now arrived. It's absolutely fascinating. There's a lot of correspondence between him and Peter Wendland, some of it slightly questionable. Say no more, nudge. But absolutely fascinating. I'm hoping that when the winter's with us, I'll get round to making an article out of that. The other thing, completely different, we live on the main road in Hartley Whitney. A lot of traffic goes by. We've set up our own form of ANPR, automatic number plate recognition, because recently we've seen a 2-litre go past on a Sunday, and on one of those occasions our younger son David, who lives close by, was driving along, took a photograph of the number plate, brought it along to us, and so if Jack Morley is here, no? Jack Morley is our youngest member, he's only about 26, with a 2-litre, and we'd say if anybody's driving through Hartley Whitney, we'd be delighted if they call in and have a cup of tea or something, but the ANPR may well cancel.
On the number plate recognition thing, I have a small story in France. I was with my Lagonda, or one of them, in France earlier this year. And I drove up to the car park in the town there, where it had one of these number plate recognition things. And it couldn't figure out this funny English number, and it wouldn't let me in. So I then found a way to drive round the back to get in. And once I was in there, it didn't recognize me either. So I parked all day and didn't pay a franc. So there are advantages in having an old number plate. Anyway, well, thank you very much, Colin, for all you've done and for continue to do. And the final one in here is to ask Catherine, who's one of our new and young board members, to talk about events.
Thank you very much. Well, as you mentioned a few moments ago, the role of the club is to assist the members in enjoying their cars. So that's sort of my role and the role of the regional reps. And so we set up pub meets that hopefully you come to and enjoy. And so do please support them, because we put them on for just you guys. And it's a real pleasure to see so many cars all here today. It's a real spectacle having so many Lagondas parked up. I'm sure you all agree. It's a rare and beautiful thing. Yeah. But we are always looking to recruit new regional members. So if any of you here think there's not much happening in your area, have a think. Would you be prepared to set up a pub meet somewhere and invite some other locals to come and join it with you? This year has been a very good year for the Lagonda Club. We've had tremendous support for the Northern and Suffolk dinner, and as you mentioned, Alan Harrison's tremendous rallies, tours in the Nidderdale. I think there were 70 members altogether enjoyed that, which is tremendous. And then I also managed to take a contingent of 15 Lagondas from the UK to the Fougère rally in France earlier on this year, and joined another 2. So that was a huge, again, group of Lagondas together. and Prescott this year was really well attended. I think it was the most we've had. I think there were 14 Lagondas joined the John Batt Memorial into Prescott, and then about another 4 picnicking with everyone. So there's been some really good turnouts so far this year. And a bit later on, something that I just found out today is will definitely been organised in October, a trip to Headcorn Airfield to visit the Spitfires, to have the guys talk about the Spitfires. So that's been organised. So that'd be a good, rare event to attend.
What's that called?
It's just a Spitfire trip in Kent.
Okay.
At Headcorn Airfield.
Headcorn.
Yeah. And looking ahead to 2024, Bill and Sue Spence were very disappointed not to be able to be here, but have informed me of the trip that they're planning to Shetland to coincide with the 20th anniversary of the classic car motor show in Lerwick. So that's the end of May, going to about the 7th of June. So it'll be a trip to Shetland, then ferrying back to Orkney, and then back down doing a bit of North Coast 500. Now, to make it viable, Bill needs 20 cars. So he asked me to get a show of support, a show of hands, to gauge the interest, because we need at least 20. So if anyone thinks they would be free, willing, and delighted to join a tour of the Orkneys and Shetland at the end of May, please raise your hand, and I'll do a quick count up. 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. Any more for any more? Maybe 13. Well, that's not bad, because there's a lot of other members. Thank you. And I know that Martin Sumner is also planning a trip to Norfolk in April. More details will be announced in the October newsletter. And then next September, I'm organising a visit to Epernay for a champagne tour, trip round the various champagne houses and touring round Epernay. Again, details will be forthcoming in the next few weeks, because we'll be getting deposits. And then, as David mentioned, 2025, Le Mans, 90 years anniversary since winning it. 30 years ago, in 1995, David had 80 Lagondas attend. I'm not anticipating 80 Lagondas. I mean, it'd be fantastic if we can get 80, a show of 80, but I have provisionally booked 30 rooms at real trackside hotels. So again, I'll be sending out details of that in the very near future to try and get a commitment from you guys, because it's going to be first come, first serve on all of these tours, and I think the anticipation will be fairly strong for lots of people going. So keep your eyes out. I'll be sending emails out, and I really hope lots of you will attend on the tours and also the local pub meets. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, before going on to any other business, there's what I call the chairman's any other business, where I can interject something anyway. And I'm going to pass over to Roger, our 10-year editor.
Right, thank you, John. One of the pleasurable things of being an editor is to be able to present the Gosling Trophy from time to time. I haven't done it for the last 2 years, but this year I think we had an exceptionally good article spread over 3 issues of our magazine. Excuse my voice is a bit gone. And I particularly wanted to present it at this meeting to our president, David Hine, because David has been an absolute rock of support for my tenure of office, with advice. He's particularly good at looking at technical articles. He's produced some very good articles himself. But this one was really good. I think everyone would have enjoyed that. And it was nice and long, and it filled a lot of pages. So here you are.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you very much. A Parker pen.
Oh, right.
Which you can order yourself.
Right, the left
just wondering if these are suitable spares for my gearbox. Thank you very much indeed. That's wonderful.
The pen is solid gold, David, so don't lose it.
Oh, right.
No, not yet. No. Next one. So anyway, there we are. That's the prize for the best article in the year, and it's a personal award from the editor. No one else has a say in it.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, David. Fantastic. Now we come any other business or any other business.
John, I'd like to mention something. First of all, thank you very much for electing me as your next chairman. I thought you ought to have a few sort of a little bit more knowledge of my background, if you like. This time last year, I was sat across the road here in the seats, and John just approached me about joining the board. Seems like things have happened quite quickly. But my dealings with Lagonda started from a very young age, where the brainwashing commenced at the age of 8 months. I was bundled into the back of a 2-litre, and as I grew up, I moved to the front. There was no health and safety in those days, and I sort of tried to lighten the car with the tax disc disappearing off, followed by getting interested in the mechanics of the car and using the screwdriver to push through the radiator and things like this. I then progressed to actually working on the 2-litre, and then when the LG45 came along, and I started to do some racing. Starting with the 2-litre, which basically is, well, Tim probably knows, is the foot's flat on the floor the whole time on the accelerator, and the brakes are sort of optional, really. Whereas the 4.5 is sort of a little bit faster. I also had a maiden win in a Rapier, and I continue to race the 4.5 now. With regard to my career, I've spent my whole life travelling around the world on behalf of the Merchant Navy, Royal Navy and the airlines, and I've been flying Boeing and Airbus aircraft, but come January I'll be 65, and from that point you go gaga and you're not allowed to fly anymore. So that's the time for me to really set my time and be your chairman for the future. I think the fundamentals are exactly as John said. We've got to have the sound finances, we've got to have a good social scene, which Catherine's doing a wonderful job with. And we've also got to have these archives, and I completely agree with James about the digitisation of our archives. I think that's vital really for the future. One other thing is I'd quite like to see more links with the Rapier Register, and we've started that with the clothing, moving to logo that polo in conjunction with the Rapier Register and social events, and I hope they will be joining us in the future as well. And ideally next year is the 90th anniversary of Rapier, and it'd be nice to see them here in numbers. So it leaves me to thank John for steering this ship, as David has mentioned, and I'll be taking over the helm in January, and I'm very delighted that John's remaining on the spares side to manage that part of the vital operation, really, to keep our cars on the road. I'd also like to thank all the board members, and I've seen, having joined not very long ago, how much work they do, but we do need new board members, so anyone who's out there who thinks, I'd like to get involved, we'd be grateful to see you. And,
Preferably less than 70.
yes, apparently I'm one of the youngest members around.
Junior membership.
So, finally, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to serving you in the near future. Very proud and honoured to do so. So thank you.
Anyway, that's it, folks. Unless there's any more,
One here,
meeting's over.
John.
No, sorry, John, there is one other.
May I just have 2 minutes and tell you a little story? A few months ago, I was attending a VSCC lunch, and a gentleman in his 70s or so came up to me in the car park, and he said, I remember you taking me for a ride in your Lagonda when I was a 14-year-old. He says, you won't remember me, Of course I didn't. And he then explained that during his working life, he'd been in the book trade. And when his company finally closed, he had retained some books about Lagondas. And with great perseverance, he had tracked me down to this particular car park and sought me out to give me the books on Lagondas. And what he had were these 9 copies of the centenary brochure that was produced for that splendid event we had at Brooklands to celebrate 100 years of Lagonda. Most of you, I expect, will already have your own copy, but those who weren't lucky enough to be there and have their copy, here's a chance. I'll put them on the table. Please come and take one.
Very good. You're not being commercial.
Well, there's one condition. If you take a copy, I shall expect a contribution to the newsletter.
So that, as John says, closes the official business, doesn't it?
I think so. I've tried to close it and failed.
Well, close it now.
Well, you can use this. This is a very famous hammer.
Closing the meeting. Right. Now I have one more excellent duty to perform. Haven't I then?
You do.
Right?
Indeed.
Ah.
It's coming through there now.
Here it is. Ta-da! Now, John, your board has been debating for some time how we can mark your decade of service to the club. And Len, our splendid Len, has had this manufactured.
Good God.
And I think so now John will be able to tell which way the wind's blowing. And I think you'll all agree that's a remarkable representation of John's 3-litre Lagonda.
It hasn't got sidebars.
What? Yeah, look there. Yeah.
He hasn't got it.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
I didn't have a decent
Well, what can I
photograph.
say?
Lovely.
Yeah, fantastic.
Congratulations, sir. Well
Where can I put it at home?
Rebuilt garage. It's quite heavy.
Of course, it is. One has to apply lubricant to the bearings here.
it's got a grease nipple.
Well, it hasn't got a grease nipple. It's a design deficiency.
Sorry.
Well, what can I say? Well, I can just thank all my colleagues. That's fantastic. Thank you so very much, everyone. It's a total surprise. And my young lady over there is going to figure out where we put it. On top of the chimney somewhere. Or should it have a dedicated pole?
Gable end.
And how does this bit work here?
That's the bracket. That's the bracket. You need to put it probably on the gable end of one of those nicely restored buildings you've got.
Lift that out.
Well, we'll figure something out. No, you can't put the back.
That should come out. It's bolted on, so the whole thing should come out. It's not well
Very good.
We'll work it out. Anyway, well, thank you all very much. Anyway. See if we go in the back of the car on the way home.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. And I'll still be around next year, hopefully. We'll see you then. Anyway, right, lunchtime. It is now, it's 5 to 12, so we've not done badly today. Very good. Because we started late anyway.